hey, helping them identify the difference between redemptive gifts, spiritual gifts, personality types, all of the different things that make up who they are, and helping them to see that God has created them in a particular way that is designed to help them fulfill their identity and destiny. So they're wired in a particular ways to engage the world. And ultimately, I think as we become more and more like Jesus, we become more rounded in redemptive gifts. But there's still primarily certain things which I think are the way we sort of see the world, think about it, and engage, So when it comes to that, helping people realize that some of the way they do things and the way they think about things is related to the way God made them, and they don't need to try and change that. They need to try and benefit from it and use it. And then that means they don't be like anybody else. Redemptive gifts are individually for the person. You don't therefore look at someone else, oh, I want to be like them, because they may have a totally different redemptive gift, which means that if you're trying to be like them, you're trying to operate outside of really who you are. So when it comes to things like that, once person has an idea and they have a desire, then you begin then to help them identify the way they see the world by asking them the right questions. Now, obviously, redemptive gift surveys are designed to help Christians identify the way God made them to be. And those surveys are there to help with questions about how people think about things and how people do things. Two different redemptive gift surveys that make up the whole is how I see the world and how I then operate in the world. And if you're, for me, redemptive gift prophet teacher, when I look at the world, I'm looking at how to understand why is this happening? Why did this happen? What's going on? How can I explain this? How can I learn from what's happened so that if something negative's happened, we learn and we learn not to do that again. So it's a very different way from looking at the world from someone like Mercy Gift, who's just looking at the poor people who are suffering, where I'm looking at why they're suffering and how we can stop them suffering. Now, that's a longer term goal in a visionary sense, because it's not immediately dealing with the suffering. But if you just deal with the suffering and then you don't deal with why the suffering's going on and what can we do to stop the suffering, then you keep having to deal with the suffering over and over and over again, which is just, that's not learning to bring about change. So, I am wired to see things from a point of, how do I understand this? How do I see this in the context of God's overall purposes? And does this align with God's kingdom? If it doesn't, how do we make sure that we deal with it so that change takes place? And then, I'm also wired to teach other people and help other people to perceive and see things as well. But other people, if they are mercy gifts, they'll see very differently and they want to deal with the immediate situation. But if you just have mercy people, then they just try and deal with the immediate situation, but they don't deal with the long term of how can we change this? How can we learn? How can we do things differently? And then there are those who are wired to rule, and they're organizers, and they begin to say, okay, here's the situation. What am I going to do to bring order into this situation of chaos? There are those who are givers. What can I do to give into this situation of my time or my skills or my money or whatever it might be to help this situation? And people will be moved to respond to the same situation differently, depending upon the way they're wired to connect with that situation. The problem is when you get a group of people tend to think everyone should be like them. So they don't understand that people see things differently, and therefore they can get frustrated with people because they don't see the world the way they do. Well, that's not how it should be. You need to, within a group of people, identify the different sorts of people of redemptive gift, and then make sure that those people have got the best fit within a group to enable them to be themselves. You don't give mercy gift people time-sensitive tasks to do because they get distracted and on the way because they come across someone who needs help, and then they forgot what they were doing. You know, if they were, you know, sent to the bank to pay in a check or something, oh, they've met some homeless person on the way, and they suddenly start, oh, I'm going to take you for a coffee and go do this, and then they go, oh no, the bank's closed, I can't pay the check in. You know, so well, we needed that check paid in today because we're going to spend it. You know, well, you've got to be careful you don't give the right people wrong jobs, or, you know, give them things that they're not suited to. And within a team environment, you want the broad spectrum of all the different things operating so that you can have a fully functioning team that sees the world in a multifaceted way, you know, and that really helps. But I would certainly encourage people to do redemptive gift surveys, and, you know, to begin to understand that it's okay to be different, and to reconcile themselves and be comfortable with themselves.